Well, howdy, I'm John Mark Dempsey, and we're having that second cup of coffee again with Dr. Mario Villarino.
Thank you for having me again.
And Mario is our Hopkins County Extension Agent with the outstanding AgriLife.
Thank you very much.
Extension program. So we're going to talk about, there's something else to worry about, a new type, not a new type, but a less well-known type of mealybug.
Right. I know you mentioned something to be worried about, but it's not something that necessarily is what we want to be worried about, but be aware of it. And it's something that is being detected nearby in certain counties close to us, and I think it's being kind of on a standby because the environmental conditions, we are in an extreme heat, dry kind of spell, so it's probably not moving so much, but it's actually the pasture mealybug.
We're going to come back to that in just a moment, but first of all, before we got into that, as I drive around Hopkins County, I see a lot of big round bales in the field, so it appears to me that we've had a pretty good hay production.
And I think it is. I think we have plenty of it around, and I was talking about how this sequence occurs. If we had the proper time when that plant is growing fast, it's beneficial for a good crop in a year.
Mm-hmm. So compared to previous years,
I think we have been just as well.
As good or better.
We have, our producers are excited about the hay shows coming up, so we have plenty of that happening. And I think the dry spell that we're dealing, I know it's hot and it's uncomfortable for people, but we're not planting hay right now. We're harvesting. So
right, sure.
Sometimes a good crop production requires both, to have the right moisture early on the season so you can grow the plant,
right,
and then later have a dry spell to you be able to process it. Mm-hmm. And sometimes the early cuts in May when we have rain, it kind of hinders our ryegrass hay production because of that, because it's wet.
Right.
You cannot get to it. So I don't think it's been the case. I think it's been evenly distributed, probably as we normally have every year. And I think this heat and this lack of moisture is kind of according to the weather that we normally have.
Right. It's what you expect this time of year. I think we did have a fair amount of rain in May and June, which probably contributed to having
we're being reporting of second and third cuts already, so that's a good thing.
Good. All right, let's talk about this pasture mealybug.
Yeah,
has been reported since 1942, but apparently it has not been as much of an issue in Texas.
Absolutely, it's been one of those things that it came up and came in the radar from producers early in the 2020s in Texas, and occurrences of pieces of the meadow not doing well, getting red and getting necrotic is called the word, being dead all of a sudden. Now, most of the time when you're walking up a pasture, when you're what we call it a scouting, you're looking for something that is wrong on the field. Basically the producers get outside with the rubber boots or something to collect whatever might be potentially creating some problems. Now, this particular insect is actually a little different because it doesn't move too much on the grass compared to an armyworm or a grasshopper that you will see them flying or very evident during your scouting. You have to actually pick up the grass and pick up the blades and
look underneath the blade.
And they look like little tanks. They're white, powdery, and they have a shell on it that actually prevents them from being affected by the majority of the insecticides that you can potentially use.
Yeah, that's fascinating. You mentioned that to me. They're somewhat resistant to chemicals.
Because they cannot get into the core because of that shell.
Wow. Yeah, but there are chemicals, and I would just recommend that you search for pasture mealybugs on the AgriLife website, and I'm sure, and your website, Hopkins County website, will have this as well. But in there, it'll tell you what the best.
Yes, and depending on the situation, how this moves on, like I said, at this point we are dry and there's not a lot of conditions that might be popping out right away. But if we have rain and it's hot, it might change to the point that we had to do something about it.
So what you're looking for is grass with a red or rusty
Correct. It looks
color.
like a normal, if you're familiar with wheat or grass production, the rust that is created by fungi it gives a hue, a red hue into the blade, and that's what you're looking for, and that's the effect of the insects chewing the plant.
But unless you see that, you shouldn't be overly concerned about it.
Yes, and the weather, of course. Keep an eye on that. If all of a sudden we have something affecting the Caribbean and bringing us rain, we start looking for or otherwise healthy meadows that might be affected.
And the pasture mealybug has been seen as near as Dallas County?
Yes, and some other counties in the center of the state. Yes, and that's why we have to be fully aware of that. Not to be panic about it, but like I said, when we have the second commodity in hay production, it's something that needs to be into the radar to be ready for it.
You haven't had any calls about this?
Not yet. I have some of them suspicious, but I haven't seen the insects.
Okay.
Yet.
So we'll be watching for this. Is it more likely to show up in the fall?
It is mainly when the temperatures start getting a little cooler than what we are. We start seeing some rain.
I see.
But like I said, all depends on how everything moves, and because it's not something that is just flying from somewhere else or migrating from somewhere else. I think we're going to see a sequence of counties moving up, and people need to be aware of looking for them.
Okay. The pasture mealybug, and Mario has an outstanding news release on this from the AgriLife, which you can provide for people, or they can find it for themselves.
Absolutely.
And have all the information you need. Mario Villarino, thank you for having that second cup of coffee again with us. I'm John Mark Dempsey. This is KSST.